India has emerged as a major diplomatic force at the world stage.
The rising cost of living in Nigeria continues to impact citizens from all walks of life.
The citizens of Gujarat witnessed a mega roadshow here in the city of Ahmedabad.
China is South Africa's largest trading partner for 134 years straight.
A domestic aircraft carrying 72 people on board crashed in Pokhara city in central Nepal.
165 injuries have been moved, 61 people are confirmed dead, and rescue operations continue around me.
After receiving an entire season's rainfall in a span of 48 hours, Chennai city has literally been brought to its knees.
South Africa, for WION, World is One.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Race to Power with me, Ananya Datta. Coming up on this broadcast, Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer have hit the campaign trail as UK election race begins. Polling is slated for 4th of July and this could be one of the most closely fought elections in recent UK history. Nikki Haley had once said that Donald Trump is not qualified to become the US president. Cut to today, she says she will vote for him. What made her change her mind? Our correspondent answers. The UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has announced that general elections will be held on the 4th of July. The surprise move has come amid growing expectations that the election would be held in late autumn. Now that would have given Sunak's government at least 2 years in office and much needed time to prove its credentials. So why did he pull the trigger now? The Tories would hope the element of surprise will serve as an advantage. Experts say that the current outlook among the public may not get any better and that there is no point in lingering. With this sudden move, it appears Sunak is trying to avoid facing the fate of Gordon Brown in the year 2010. But his decision to hold early elections has also received a divided response from his own party. The 14 years of Conservative rule is one of the longest stretches for a single party in power in the United Kingdom in the past century. Second only to 18 years of the Conservative government that had began in 1979. This time around, however, the odds are not in his favour. If opinion polls are to be believed, Sunak is staring at a massive defeat. The opposition Labour Party led by Keir Starmer is expected to gain a rather comfortable victory for Labour. Starmer kicked off his campaign calling for a vote for change. He argues that only his party can snap the country out of its economic instability.
If you want change, you have to vote for it. And if you vote Labour, it's a vote to stop the chaos, it's a vote to turn the page, and it's a vote to rebuild our country together.
Sunak's government, on the other hand, accuses Labour of planning tax increases and being unprepared for global challenges. Sunak began his election campaign in central England with a mention of his flagship policy. He said that he expects to see flights taking asylum seekers to Rwanda by July. Now, this would mean that no flights take off before the elections. UK's Reform Party has also hit out at Sunak's decision, calling for early elections, claiming the Tory leader is terrified. As per the latest YouGov poll, the Reform is better favoured than the ruling Conservatives.
The truth is that he's bottled it. He's cut and run. Why? Because he was absolutely terrified, as Ben quite rightly alluded to the fact that Reform UK is going up and up in the polls with our common sense policies to save Britain, whilst the Tories have been sinking in the polls.
Now, around this time just yesterday, the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak had come out of 10 Downing Street just after a cabinet meeting and announced that UK will go to polls on July 4th. Now, just after that, a day after that, remember, the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and also the opposition Labour Party leader Keir Starmer, both of them have hit the campaign trail. Both of them were out there campaigning and wooing the voters with elections slated for July 4th.
According to the Alzheimer's Society, a deceitful and dishonest tactic is being used to try and preserve a
the opposition, Keir Starmer.
Can I send my best wishes to the honourable member and his father also, and all those suffering?
Now remember, the move has come amid growing expectations that the election would be held in late autumn. That's what was expected, and a lot of experts from London were saying that. And that would have definitely given Sunak's government at least 2 years in office, and also much needed time to prove its credentials, because remember, Rishi Sunak took office at a time when, just after Boris Johnson, we saw another government come in, and then Rishi Sunak had to take the realms at a time when UK's economy wasn't doing very well. And from there today, we know that July 4th will be the election day in the United Kingdom. And the Tories would hope that the element of surprise, this election's element of surprise, will serve as an advantage. Well, if at all that would be the case, that we will have to see. What's also important here is that this decision to hold early elections has received a divided response from the Tory party itself, which is Rishi Sunak's party. The 14 years of Conservative rule is one of the longest stretches for a single party in power in the UK in the past century, second only to 18 years of Conservative government that, of course, began in the year 1979.
Moral failure at the heart of our national life. From the National Health Service to the civil service.
Now, to take this further, we are now being joined by political analyst and commentator Dr. Nigel Fletcher, live from London. Dr. Fletcher, good to have you on WION. What was your reaction to Rishi Sunak calling for early elections?
Well, one of great surprise, like most people, I think, in Westminster and around the country. We really weren't expecting this election until the autumn, and even as late as 12 o'clock yesterday, the Prime Minister was still insisting that the election would be in the second half of the year, which technically it will be, but we were expecting it much later. So one of real surprise.
Right, and you see that Rishi Sunak is really banking on its Rwanda policy. How much of that do you think will actually have an edge over the Labour Party?
Well, it was thought that this was going to be a central plank of his election campaign, but in reality, there's not going to be very much for him to be able to point to in the campaign. The flights that were going to be taking off, that he was working so hard to try to get, are not going to happen until later in July. He admitted this morning that that's not going to happen until after the election. So he's left now in a situation where he's promising something that will not have happened by the election, and trying to persuade people to trust him to deliver it. But it makes the timing of it all the more surprising that he won't be able to point to that as an achievement by the time people vote.
Dr. Fletcher, before I let you go, do you think Labour sits at a comfortable position then?
I think there's no other way of looking at it, really. The Labour Party are somewhere around 20 points ahead in the opinion polls. It would take something hugely significant for them to lose that lead in the course of an election campaign. Even in the most dramatic turnarounds in elections, we've only seen a much more modest shift in the polls. I think you'd have to look at these the poll results and say that the Labour Party really is set to win the election, and the only question is by how much they will win it.
Absolutely, that seems to be the question. Dr. Fletcher, thank you so much for speaking with us from London.
Thank you.
All right, following UK Prime Minister's surprise election announcement, Scotland has also kick-started preparations for the July polls. Leading the way is Scotland's ruling Scottish National Party. The region's newly appointed First Minister, John Swinney, said that his party will begin its election campaign today.
So we're ready to go, and I'll be out and about around the country. I intend to take my message to every part of the country. I'm the First Minister of all of Scotland, and I intend to be present in every part of Scotland, taking a positive message about the fact that Westminster has inflicted significant damage on the people of Scotland through austerity, Brexit and the cost of living crisis. And the way out of that is for Scotland to be a country that takes our own decisions as an independent country. And people know that they can rely on the SNP to put Scotland first, and that's what will be central to our election campaign.
But it seems the SNP party has not taken kindly to the timing of the election. Swinney made a stern remark regarding Rishi Sunak's decision, saying the decision to hold a general elections as Scottish schools begin their summer break is quote-unquote the latest act of disrespect from the UK government. The surprise election in July could pose a challenge for the ruling SNP with the recent change of guard and the growing popularity of the Labour Party. In the run-up to the US presidential elections, an interesting change in dynamics is making headlines in the Republican camp. While all other candidates had dropped out of the race and backed Donald Trump, one candidate continued to fight against him. Nikki Haley was the last to reluctantly withdraw from the race. And now, the former South Carolina governor says that she will vote for Donald Trump.
Trump has not been perfect on these policies. I've made that clear many, many times. But Biden has been a catastrophe. So I will be voting for Trump. Having said that, I stand by what I said in my suspension speech. Trump would be smart to reach out to the millions of people who voted for me and continue to support me, and not assume that they're just going to be with him. And I genuinely hope he does that.
Haley made these remarks at her first public appearance since she dropped out of the presidential race, making Trump the only candidate from the Republican camp. The remarks come as a surprise given that Haley has for the longest time been a fierce critic of Donald Trump. The Republican leader also stopped short of formally endorsing Trump's candidacy. In fact, she has asked her former boss to reach out to the vote bank that supports Haley and not assume that they will automatically vote for Trump. Haley's sudden U-turn and change in attitude towards the returning presidential candidate has raised eyebrows and questions on whether Haley is seeking to mend ties with Trump. More importantly, is Nikki Haley trying to have a shot at trying to be the vice president of the US?
That gets it. She has been at the United Nations for...
Now, correspondent Susan Tehrani is joining us live from New York to get us the latest, of course. Susan, good to see you as always. Now, Nikki Haley is someone who once said that Donald Trump is not capable of being, not qualified rather, if I'm quoting her correctly, to become the US president. Today, we hear that she is going to vote for Donald Trump in November. What should one make of this U-turn?
Yeah, Nikki Haley does what's best for Nikki Haley. And not that that's anything wrong with that, but in a situation like campaigning, it should at least appear that she's moving forward for the betterment of the country and the betterment of people. But that's not the case. And that's why, as you rightly mentioned, there's speculations on whether or not she's trying to get on Donald Trump's right side, possibly not only for a vice presidential position, but a cabinet position. Judging from Donald Trump's character, it's very unlikely that Donald Trump would invite Nikki Haley in as vice president or even anyone in his cabinet, considering the fact that anyone who knows Trump knows that once someone, quote unquote, betrays him, then it's very hard to gain that trust again. And I don't know if Trump supporters really want someone like Nikki Haley alongside the former president. Democrats will continue to say that they should come together. The Haley front should come together with the Donald Trump front and whatnot. And that's because it would be to the benefit of Joe Biden. But nonetheless, there was no other option for Nikki Haley than to say something like this, even if she's not officially endorsing Donald Trump, considering the fact that her political future was really in jeopardy. She would be on the sidelines like someone like Chris Christie, Liz Cheney.
Absolutely, Susan. And as you said, Nikki Haley does what's good for Nikki Haley. Thank you so much for joining us here on WION and getting us all those updates from New York. All right, now less than a week left for elections in South Africa. In the run-up to these crucial polls, experts and voters weigh in on the political future of the ruling African National Congress. Our next report getting you all the details.
Since leading the anti-apartheid movement and liberating South Africa, the African National Congress has ruled South Africa for 30 years. The ANC has long shouldered its popularity on its legacy from years past. But now, the citizens are talking about change.
When it comes to election matters, we don't have hope in this government of the day. We want change. We really want change.
For years now, scandals, infighting and mounting domestic issues have overshadowed ANC's glorious past. Corruption and unemployment are among the issues on the ballot, and the party faces dissatisfaction from South Africans who feel it has not lived up to its promises.
Yes, I'd love to see more infrastructure and employment. Yes, I just want to see a change in the society.
Polls suggest the ANC might lose its two-thirds majority for the first time in 3 decades. Experts feel the election will be pivotal.
They matter because there are more political parties involved, but also the ANC has disappointed many people over the past 30 years. So this is a watershed moment for a change, at least from those that are disgruntled by the current government. That's why it's an important election. And also you have got young people who were born after 1994, who have not experienced what we experienced. And many of them is their first time to vote this year. So they'll be voting based on their own personal experiences, not based on what happened in the past.
With voting scheduled on May 29th, all eyes will be on South Africa as the country undergoes a changing political landscape and a ruling party, once headed by Nelson Mandela, fights for its survival.
Will ANC be able to hold on to its power of 3 decades, or will there be a new dawn? Citizens will decide on May 29. This is Caledonia from Johannesburg, South Africa. For WION, World is One.
Now, news updates coming in from the mass sexual abuse case in India's Karnataka. The Ravenna father-son duo have been charged with rape and kidnapping. Sources tell WION that the External Affairs Ministry is working to cancel Prajwal Ravenna's diplomatic password. Now, while the 60-year-old father remained in Karnataka, the JDS-BJP MP fled to Germany just before the case came to light. The development comes after the state government sent a formal letter urging revoking of Ravenna's passport. Earlier, the External Affairs revealed that Ravenna did not follow protocol before leaving India. He did not get the political clearance needed, nor did he carry a visa note. Just last weekend, an arrest warrant was issued against Ravenna for the very first time. It was expected to be followed by a red corner notice, which means that global law enforcement agencies will help locate and arrest Ravenna. It has been a month since the case came to light, and pressure is building on authorities to bring the accused back to India. The latest to step up the pressure is H.D. Devagowda. He is the JDS Supremo and the grandfather of Ravenna. In a statement, he said, and I'm quoting, "I'm warning Prajwal to return from wherever he is and surrender before the police. If he doesn't, he will have to face my anger." Now, it has been more than a week since unrest gripped New Caledonia, a tiny overseas territory of France, and hours after landing, President Emmanuel Macron said that more talks are needed and that the voting reform will not be forced.
I personally believe that the state of emergency should not be extended because, as I told you, I deeply believe that dialogue is necessary.
For days now, the streets of New Caledonia have looked like this. Home to the indigenous Kanak community, riots have left 6 people dead and a trail of looted shops, torched cars and daily lives upended.
In the coming hours and days, massive new operations will be scheduled where necessary, and Republican order in its entirety will be re-established because there is no other choice.
Riots erupted over constitutional amendment approved in France. If finalized, it would change who is allowed to vote in New Caledonia's elections. Right now, only people who came to the island before 1998 are eligible to vote. Under the new constitutional amendment, those who have lived in New Caledonia for at least 10 years will get a vote. The indigenous communities are scared that this will dilute their political influence. Paris's defense is that French civilians living in the island for the past 10 years should have a right to vote. Now, in Mexico, presidential candidates are pulling out all stops in campaigning for their parties. But one such rally took a tragic turn when a stage collapsed, killing 9 people. The dead victims include a child. The incident took place in northern Mexico when a stage caved in after being blown away by strong gusts of wind. 50 others were injured in the mishap as chaos ensued. The incident took place at the closing campaign rally of Mexico Citizens Movement Party. The party's presidential candidate, Jorge Alvarez, who was at the rally, left shortly after the tragedy unfolded.
Le avisé a las compañeras que estábamos ahí.
There were moments of great uncertainty, and we are still living moments of great uncertainty and concern because it is a tragedy that the people who came to live a day of celebration, of joy with us, with the group, are now victims of this tragedy.
Y cuando se da cuenta, también corren en otra dirección, algunos saltan.
Other presidential candidates expressed their condolences over the tragic incident. Frontrunner Claudia Sheinbaum cancelled a rally planned for Thursday and expressed solidarity with the family and friends of the victims. Main opposition presidential candidate Galvez also offered prayers to the families of those killed. Elections are scheduled to be held in Mexico on June 2nd. And with that, we are wrapping up this edition of Race to Power. Thanks for watching.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays, 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas. Seeing is believing.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at yowan.com.
Namaste. Hello friends. We did Dr. Subhash Chandra show, popularly known as DSC show, for 4 years, from August 2014 to August 2018. 28 states of Bharat. Of course, we reached out to all of you in 190 countries across the world. The show was very successful. Each episode was being watched by almost 25 million people every week. For past 6 years, the demand of the show has never died down. People write to us, people ask for the show to restart again. Hence, we are beginning the show once again on All Z Network, also on WION, which is the global network channel from India. Again, thank you for your love and affection. See you soon at Subhash Chandra Show.
the biggest democratic exercise on the planet ever. Decoding the multiple colors of this multi-dimensional, multi-layered spectacle. WION deciphers the images and the hues, sifts real performance from rhetoric and noise, claims and counterclaims, populist pitches and hidden truths. Untangling, unraveling this celebration of democracy.